Welcome to another adventure. This part of the adventure finds us back in Vicksburg, Mississippi. We had driven pretty much across the state on our way to Vicksburg. It was kind of interesting to find ourselves right on the state line. What you can see on the other side of those bridges is Louisiana. Vicksburg's not too big of a town. According to the 2010 census, it was 23,856 in population. This is the visitor center, just inside Vicksburg. It's a neat little visit, not too far from our campground. There's a lot of history here in the Vicksburg area. Back in 1719, the French actually built a fort here in the area on the banks of the Mississippi. They were later attacked by American Indians and never really recovered from that too much. The town of Vicksburg was incorporated in 1825. It was a key Confederate river port during the Civil War. A lot of neat old buildings downtown. This is the old Warren County Courthouse. It was constructed between 1858 and 1860. And it cost the city $100,000 at that time. Now it's been turned into a museum. Pretty impressive old courthouse. The interesting part is throughout the whole museum we were noticing these old iron doors and window shutters. And they're the original iron storm shutters for the building. And they're still intact and still usable. This museum had a lot of different stuff from, of course, the Confederate Army in the Civil War era to regular household goods, clothes, quilts, tools, all kinds of different things from before, during, and after the Civil War. Pretty extensive museum. Still amazes me how much original artifacts a lot of these places have in their museums, from flags to bullets found in battlefields to different parts of uniforms to sabers that were carried by prominent folks on both sides, to currency, to furniture. I mean, there's just so much actual artifacts that they have on display. It's amazing. This museum's been open for a while. It opened its doors June 3rd of 1948. Quite a long history. Being from the Pacific Northwest pretty much all my life, I've been to a few states here and there. Stationed in Tennessee and Georgia while in the military for short periods of time. Never really got to see a lot of this historical museum and the historical side of things. And it's really intriguing to see this type of memorabilia left behind when we just don't see it much at all on this part of the country in the Pacific Northwest. Some of these displays are really cool. They showed the equipment that the doctors of the time would have carried around with them. They did not have much, but the old glass bottles with the different medicines and other chemicals they used, to the very rough surgical equipment they would carry as well. What I really liked about this museum is it went into household items, dishes, things, collectibles that people would have collected over the years, and just day-to-day items from, again, before, during, and after the Civil War. And this piano is just got a history unto itself, and here it just sits right here. And it's a Steinway. Kind of neat seeing the gramophone in there with our stop at Edison's factory when we were in New Jersey. Knowing more of the history now, it just kind of makes it a little more interesting. This chair was pretty neat. You can see the pictures in the back. It could elevate to be a high chair, or the legs even folded up more so it'd be like a rocking chair for a small child. Really neat engineering and design that went into it. The amount of information and items they had at this museum was, to me, spectacular, from American Indians to the early pioneers to the equipments used. The quilts they sewed, and those were hand-sewn mid-1800s quilts. Just really neat to see those. And the work on this stairwell is just amazing. The craftsmanship, the details. You definitely don't see that very often anymore. The metal bar you see on the left was for an old stair seat that was broken and didn't work anymore. I have to say, we actually own a couple of treadle sewing machines, and I've never seen one looking like that before. Of course, that's older than the ones we have. This whole room we were in had all kinds of clothing items from that era, and it was just amazing to see the fine detail. And if you didn't have a treadle sewing machine, these were all done by hand. And even the everyday wear dresses were just very well done with just extremely accurate, well done hand stitching on them. Really impressive to see the variety of things that this museum had to look at. And Sonia and our daughter really likes photography, and it was neat seeing the old cameras. And I got another daughter that loves the antiques and has an old typewriter. And when we first got it, the keys wouldn't work, but we've been working on cleaning it up and oiling it, and you can now move the keys again. It still needs some work, but. And I tell you, I watched a YouTube video of a guy recently who bought a new style of bike designed like that old one. And they just look so difficult to learn how to ride on. But he did it. And said actually once you get the hang of it, they were pretty stable and easy to ride bicycles. The woodwork on some of these old corbels was just so impressive. I have to say I've never seen a tricycle like that. They had old smoking pipes, woodworking tools, recreational items like the bicycles. I mean, this museum really had a really broad spectrum of things to look at. And this is the original courtroom up on the second floor. You can see the big steel doors closed there on the side doors. Those are the storm doors that were still in place. And this raised platform here is the original, and that's all cast iron. Quite elaborate and decorative. Very impressive. And they had, was it 1 or 2 rooms in the back that were designated to Jefferson Davis. Some of this is the actual furniture that he and his family owned. And it's kind of sad to learn that his kids, a lot of them died before they even got to adulthood. Family did not have an easy life. Really neat design to the courtroom. I want to say those light fixtures are original as well, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And then we cruised through town and saw several other old historic buildings. One of these houses that we went to look at was supposed to be open for self-guided tours, but when we got there, it did not look like it had been open for quite some time. But really neat architecture. I know these places have a lot of history. Then we went to the Coca-Cola Museum. The interesting part about this is this was built by Joseph Beidenharn and his father back in 1890. They did not create Coca-Cola. That was done by Asa Griggs Candler. But Candler came and approached the Beidenharns in about 1894-ish to see if they would sell the Coca-Cola syrup because they had a soda fountain. And it was the Beidenharns that actually started to bottle it. And so this is some of the old bottling equipment here. The interesting part is that face shield was actually worn by the bottlers because back when they first started doing it, there was no quality control for the glass bottles, and oftentimes the glass bottles would explode when they were bottling them. But they got the okay from Candler to start bottling Coca-Cola, and that was the first time in the U.S. that Coca-Cola was bottled for sale. Before that, you had to go to a soda fountain to get it. Just kind of a neat history there that the Beidenharns were the first to bottle it and made it such a big, huge product, and they were not the original creators of the Coca-Cola syrup. They had so much different Coke memorabilia and neat history. It's amazing how something so small as, coming up with the idea to bottle a drink back in the day so that it was available to more people, and how big it would become after that. And this is in the back side of the museum. You actually go outside, and this is an old soda fountain. I have to say, I love the looks of them with the old bar tops there and the fancy woodwork, and lots of neat memorabilia there at the Coca-Cola Museum. And some of this furniture was used by Beidenharn in his endeavors to bottle Coca-Cola and ship it all over the place. How's that for a neat old time clock? There's the mighty Mississippi. We've driven across this river several times on our trip. Seeing these big, huge barges going down the river, quite an impressive sight to see. We've seen barges going up and down the Columbia River here in the Pacific Northwest, but I don't think I've ever seen that many barges attached together to make one giant barge until we were down here. It's been a great trip. Thanks for coming along.